The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Udyoga Parva. Section 36, Sign Udyoga Parva. Vidura said, in this connection is cited the old story of the discourse between the son of Atri and the deities called Sagdyas as heard by us in days of old. The deities known by the name of Sagdyas questioned the highly wise and great rishi of Rigidvos the son of Atri, while the latter was wandering in the guise of one depending on eleemosynary charity for livelihood. The Sagdyas said, we are, O great rishi, deities known as Sagdyas. Beholding thee, we are unable to guess who thou art. It seemeth to us however that thou art possessed of intelligence and self-control in consequence of acquaintance with the scriptures. It therefore behoveth thee to discourse to us in magnanimous words fraught with learning. The mendicant rishi answered, Ye immortals, it hath been heard by me that by untying all the knots in the heart by the aid of tranquility, and by mastery over all the passions, and observance of true religion, one should regard both the agreeable and the disagreeable like his own self. One should not return the slanders or reproaches of others for the pain that is felt by him who beareth silently, consumeth the slanderer, and he that beareth succeedeth also in appropriating the virtues of the slanderer. Indulge not in slanders and reproaches. Do not humiliate and insult others. Quarrel not with friends. Abstain from companionship with those that are vile and low. Be not arrogant and ignoble in conduct. Avoid words that are harsh and fraught with anger. Harsh words burn and scorch the very vitals, bones, heart, and the very sources of the life of men. Therefore, he that is virtuous should always abstain from harsh and angry words. That worst of men is of harsh and wrathful speech, who pierceth the vitals of others with wordy thorns, beareth hell in his tongue, and should ever be regarded as a dispenser of misery to men. The man that is wise, pierced by another's wordy arrows, sharp-pointed and smarting like Sixri or the sun, should, even if deeply wounded and burning with pain, bear them patiently, remembering that the slander's merits become his. He that waiteth upon one that is good or upon one that is wicked, upon one that is possessed of ascetic merit or upon one that is a thief, soon taketh the colour from that companion of his, like a cloth from the dye in which it is soaked. The very gods desire his company who, stung with reproach, returneth it not himself nor causeth others to return it, or who being struck doth not himself return the blow nor causeth other to do it, and who wisheth not the slightest injury to him that injureth him. Silence, it is said, is better than speech. If speak you must, then it is better to say the truth. If truth is to be said, it is better to say what is agreeable, and if what is agreeable is to be said, then it is better to say what is consistent with morality. A man becometh exactly like him with whom he liveth, or like him whom he regardeth, or like that which he wisheth to be. One is freed from those things from which one abstaineth, and if one abstaineth from everything be hard not to suffer even the least misery. Such a man neither vanquisheth others, nor is vanquished by others. He never injureth nor opposeth others. He is unmoved by praise or blame. He neither grieveth nor exulteth in joy. That man is regarded as the first of his species who wisheth for the prosperity of all and never setteth his heart on the misery of others, who is truthful in speech, humble in behavior, and hath all his passions under control. That man is regarded as a mediocre in goodness who never consoleth others by saying what is not true, who giveth having promised, and who keepeth an eye over the weakness of others. These however are the indications of a bad man, viz., incapacity to be controlled, liability to be afflicted by dangers, proneness to give way to wrath, ungratefulness, inability to become another's friend, and wickedness of heart. He too is the worst of men, who is dissatisfied with any good that may come to him from others, who is suspicious of his own self, and who driveth away from himself all his true friends. He that desireth prosperity to himself, should wait upon them that are good, and at times upon them that are indifferent, but never upon them that are bad. He that is wicked, earneth wealth, it is true, by putting forth his strength, by constant effort, by intelligence, and by prowess, but he can never win honest fame, nor can he acquire the virtues and manners of high families in any of which he may be born. Dhritarashtra said, the gods, they that regard both virtue and profit without swerving from either, and they that are possessed of great learning, express a liking for high families. I ask thee, O Vidura, this question, what are those families that are called high? Vidura said, asceticism, self-restraint, knowledge of the Vedas, sacrifices, pure marriages, and gifts of food. Those families in which these 7 exist or are practiced duly, are regarded as high. There are high families who deviate not from the right course, whose deceased ancestors are never pained by witnessing the wrongdoings of their descendants, who cheerfully practice all the virtues, who desire to enhance the pure fame of the line in which they are born, and who avoid every kind of falsehood. Families that are high, fall down and become low, owing to the absence of sacrifices, impure marriages, abandonment of the Veda, and insults offered to Brahmanas. High families fall off and become low owing to their members disregarding or speaking ill of Brahmanas, or to the misappropriation, O Bharata, of what had been deposited with them by others. Those families that are possessed of members, wealth, and kin, are not regarded as families if they be wanting in good manners and conduct, while families wanting in wealth but distinguished by manners and good conduct are regarded as such and win great reputation. Therefore, should good manners and good conduct be maintained with care, for, as regards wealth, it cometh or goeth. He that is wanting in wealth is not really wanting, but he that is wanting in manners and conduct is really in want. Those families that abound in kin and other cattle and in the produce of the field, are not really worthy of regard and fame if they be wanting in manners and conduct. Let none in our race be a fomenter of quarrels, none serve a king as minister, none steal the wealth of others, none provoke intestine dissensions, none be deceitful or false in behavior, and none need before serving the rishis, the gods, and guests. He in our race, who slayeth Brahmanas, or entertaineth feelings of aversion towards them, or impedeth or otherwise injureth agriculture, doth not deserve to mix with us. Straw for a seat, ground for sitting upon, water to wash the feet and face, and, fourthly, sweet words, these are never wanting in the houses of the good. Virtuous men devoted to the practice of righteous acts when desirous of entertaining guests, have these things ready for being offered with reverence. As the sandal tree, O king, though thin, is competent to bear weights which timbers of other trees much thicker cannot, so they that belong to high families are always able to bear the weight of great cares which ordinary men cannot. He is no friend whose anger inspireth fear, or who is to be waited upon with fear. He, however, on whom one can repose confidence as on a father, is a true friend. Other friendships are nominal connection. He that beareth himself as a friend, even though unconnected by birth of blood, is a true friend, a real refuge, and a protector. He whose heart is unsteady, or who doth not wait upon the aged, or who is of a restless disposition cannot make friends. Success in the attainment of objects forsaketh the person whose heart is unsteady, or who hath no control over his mind, or who is a slave of his senses, like swans forsaking a tank whose waters have dried up. They that are of weak minds suddenly give way to anger and are gratified without sufficient cause, they are like clouds that are so inconstant. the very birds of prey abstain from touching the dead bodies of those who, having been served and benefited by friends, showing gratitude to the latter. Beest thou poor or beest thou rich, thou shouldst honor thy friends. Until some service is asked, the sincerity or otherwise of friends cannot be known. Sorrow killeth beauty, sorrow killeth strength, sorrow killeth the understanding, and sorrow bringeth on disease. Grief, instead of helping the acquisition of its object, drieth up the body, and maketh one's foes glad. Therefore do not yield to grief. Men repeatedly die and are reborn, repeatedly they wither away and grow, repeatedly they ask others for help, and they themselves are asked for help, repeatedly they lament and are lamented. Happiness and misery, plenty and want, gain and loss, life and death, are shared by all in due order. Therefore he that is self-controlled should neither exult in joy nor repine in sorrow. The six senses are always restless. Through the most predominant one amongst them one's understanding escaped in proportion to the strength it assumes, like water from a pot through its holes. Dhritarashtra said, King Yudhishthira, who is like a flame of fire, has been deceived by me. He will surely exterminate in battle all my wicked sons. Everything therefore seems to me to be fraught with danger, and my mind is full of anxiety. O thou of great intelligence, tell me such words as may dispel my anxiety. Vidura said, O sinless one, in nothing else than knowledge and asceticism, in nothing else than restraining the senses, in nothing else than complete abandonment of avarice, do I see thy good. Fear is dispelled by self-knowledge, by asceticism one winneth what is great and valuable, by waiting upon superiors learning is acquired, and peace is gained by self-restraint. They that desire salvation without having acquired the merit attainable by gifts, or that which is attainable by practicing the ritual of the Ved, do not sojourn through life, freed from anger and aversion. The happiness that may be derived from a judicious course of study, from a battle fought virtuously, from ascetic austerities performed rigidly, always increaseth at the end. They that are no longer in peace with their relatives, obtain no sleep even if they have recourse to well-made beds, nor do they, O king, derive any pleasure from women, or the laudatory hymns of bards and eulogists. Such persons can never practice virtue. Happiness can never be theirs in this world. Honors can never be theirs, and peace hath no charm for them. Counsels that are for their benefit please them not. They never acquire what they have not, nor succeed in retaining what they have. O king, there is no other end for such men save destruction. As milk is possible in kin, asceticism in Brahmanas, and inconstancy in women, so fear is possible from relatives. Numerous thin threads of equal length collected together, are competent to bear from the strength of numbers, the constant rolling of the shuttlecock over them. The case is even so with relatives that are good, O bull of the Bharata race, separated from one another, burning brands produce only smoke, but brought together they blaze forth into a powerful flame. The case is even so, O Dhritarashtra, with relatives. They, O Dhritarashtra, who tyrannize over Brahmanas, women, relatives, and kin, soon fall off their stalks, like fruits that are ripe. And the tree that stands singly, though gigantic and strong and deep-rooted, hath its trunk soon smashed and twisted by a mighty wind. Those trees, however, that grow in close compact are competent owing to mutual dependence to resist winds more violent still. Thus he that is single, however endowed with all the virtues, is regarded by foes as capable of being vanquished like an isolated tree by the wind. Relatives again, in consequence of mutual dependence and mutual aid, grow together, like lotus stalks in a lake. These must never be slain, viz., Brahmanas, kin, relatives, children, women, those whose food is eaten, and those also that yield by asking for protection. O king, without wealth no good quality can show itself in a person. If however thou art in health, thou canst achieve thy good, for he is dead who is unhealthy and ill. O king, anger is a kind of bitter, pungent, acrid, and hot drink, painful in its consequences. It is a kind of headache not born of any physical illness, and they that are unwise can never digest it. Do thou, O king, swallow it up and obtain peace. They that are tortured by disease have no liking for enjoyments, nor do they desire any happiness from wealth. The sick, however filled with sorrow, know not what happiness is or what the enjoyments of wealth are. Beholding Draupadi won at dice, I told thee before, O king, these words, they that are honest avoid deceit in play. Therefore stop Duryodhana. Thou didst not however act according to my words. That is not strength which is opposed to softness. On the other hand, strength mixed with softness constitutes true policy which should ever be pursued. That prosperity which is dependent on crookedness alone is destined to be destroyed. That prosperity, however, which depends on both strength and softness, descends to sons and grandsons intact. Let therefore thy sons cherish the Pandavas, and the Pandavas also cherish thy sons. O king, let the Kurus and the Pandavas, both having same friends and same foes, live together in happiness and prosperity. Thou art today, O king, the refuge of the sons of Kuru. Indeed the race of Kuru Ajamida is dependent on thee. O sire, preserving thy fame unsullied, cherish thou the children of Pandu, afflicted as they are with the sufferings of exile. O descendant of Kuru, make peace with the sons of Pandu. Let not thy foes discover thy holes. They all, O God among men, are devoted to truth. O king of men, withdraw Duryodhana from his evil ways. Thus ends the 36th section in the C.I.E. Udyoga Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 37, C.I.E. Udyoga Parva. Vidura said, O son of Vichitravirya, Manu the son of the self-created, heart-hawking spoken of the following 7 and 10 kinds of men, as those that strike empty space with their fists, or seek to bend the vapory bow of Indra in the sky, or desire to catch the intangible rays of the sun. These 7 and 10 kinds of foolish men are as follows: he who seeketh to control a person that is incapable of being controlled. He who is content with small gains. He who humbly pays court to enemies. He who seeks to restrain woman's frailty. He who asketh him for gifts who should never be asked. He who boasteth, having done nothing. He who, born in a high family, perpetrateth an improper deed. He who, being weak always wageth hostilities with one that is powerful. He who talketh to a person listening scoffingly. He who desireth to have that which is unattainable. He who being a father-in-law, jesteth with his daughter-in-law. He who boasteth at having his alarms dispelled by his daughter-in-law. He who scattereth his own seeds in another's field. He who speaketh ill of his own wife. He who having received anything from another saith that he doth not remember it. He who, having given away anything in words in holy places, boasteth at home when asked to make good his words, and he who striveth to prove the truth of what is false. The envoys of Yama, with nooses in hand, drag those persons to hell. One should behave towards another just as that other behaved towards him. Even this is consistent with social polity. One may behave deceitfully towards him that behaveth deceitfully, but honestly towards him that is honest in his behavior. Old age killeth beauty, patience, hope, death, life, the practice of virtue, worldly enjoyments, lust, modesty, companionship with the wicked, good behavior, anger, prosperity, and pride, everything. Dhritarashtra said, man hath been spoken of in all the Vedas as having 100 years for the period of his life. For what reason then, do not all men attain the allotted period? Vidura said, excess of pride, excess in speech, excess in eating, anger, the desire of enjoyment, and intestine dissensions, these, O king, are 6 sharp swords that cut off the period of life allotted to creatures. It is these which kill men, and not death. Knowing this, blessed be thou. He who appropriates to himself the wife of one who hath confided in him, he who violates the bed of his preceptor, that Brahmana or Bharata, who becomes the husband of a Sudra woman, or drinks wines, he who commandeth Brahmanas or becometh their master, or taketh away the lands that support them, and he who taketh the lives of those who yield asking for protection, are all guilty of the sin of slaying Brahmanas. The Vedas declare that contact with these requires expiation. He that accepts the teaching of the wise, he that is acquainted with the rules of morality, he that is liberal, he that eateth having first dedicated the food to the gods and P3s, he that envieth none, he that is incapable of doing anything that injureth others, he that is grateful, truthful, humble and learned, succeedeth in attaining to heaven. They are abundant, O king, that can always speak agreeable words. The speaker, however, is rare, as also the hearer, of words that are disagreeable but medicinal. That man who, without regarding what is agreeable or disagreeable to his master but keeping virtue alone in view, saith what is unpalatable, but medicinal, truly addeth to the strength of the king. For the sake of the family a member may be sacrificed, for the sake of the village, a family may be sacrificed, for the sake of a kingdom a village may be sacrificed, and for the sake of one's soul, the whole earth may be sacrificed. One should protect his wealth in view of the calamities that may overtake him. By his wealth one should protect his wives, and by both his wealth and wives one should protect his own self. From very olden times it hath been seen that gambling provoketh quarrels. Therefore, he that is wise, should not resort to it even in jest. O son of Pratapa, at the time of that gambling match I told thee, O king, this is not proper. But, O son of Vichitravirya, like medicine to a sick man, those words of mine were not agreeable to thee. O king, thou desirest to vanquish the sons of Pandu, who are just as peacocks of variegated plumage, whereas thy sons are all as crows. Forsaking lions thou art protecting jackals. O king, when the time cometh, thou wilt have to grieve for all this. That master, O sire, who doth not give vent to his displeasure with devoted servants zealously pursuing his good, enlisteth the confidence of his servants. In fact, the latter adhere to him even in distress. By confiscating the grants to one's servants or stopping their pay, one should not seek to amass wealth, for even affectionate counselors deprived of their means of life and enjoyment, turn against him and leave him in distress. Reflecting first on all intended acts and adjusting the wages and allowances of servants with his income and expenditure, a king should make proper alliances, for there is nothing that cannot be accomplished by alliances. That officer who, fully understanding the intentions of his royal master, dischargeth all duties with alacrity, and who is respectable himself and devoted to his master, always telleth what is for his master's good, and who is fully acquainted with the extent of his own might and with that also of those against whom he may be engaged, should be regarded by the king as his second self. That servant, however, who commanded by his master disregarded the latter's injunctions and who enjoined to do anything refuseth to submit, proud as he is of his own intelligence and given to arguing against his master, should be got rid of without the least delay. Men of learning say that a servant should be endued with these 8 qualities, viz., absence of pride, ability, absence of procrastination, kindness, cleanliness, incorruptibility, birth in a family free from the taint of disease, and weightiness of speech. No man should confidently enter an enemy's house after dusk even with notice. One should not at night lurk in the yard of another's premises, nor should one seek to enjoy a woman to whom the king himself might make love. Never set thyself against the decision to which a person hath arrived who keepeth low company and who is in the habit of consulting all he meeteth. Never tell him, I do not believe thee, but assigning some reason send him away on a pretext. A king who is exceedingly merciful, a woman of lewd character, the servant of a king, a son, a brother, a widow having an infant son, one serving in the army, and one that hath suffered great losses, should never be engaged in pecuniary transactions of lending or borrowing. These 8 qualities shed a lustre on men, viz., wisdom, high lineage, acquaintance with scriptures, self-restraint, prowess, moderation in speech, gift to the extent of one's power, and gratefulness. These high qualities, O sire, are necessarily brought together by one only by gifts. When the king favours a person, that incident of royal favour bringeth in all others and holdeth them together. He that performeth ablutions winneth these 10, viz., strength, beauty, a clear voice, capacity to utter all the alphabetical sounds, delicacy of touch, fineness of scent, cleanliness, gracefulness, delicacy of limbs, and beautiful women. He that eateth sparingly winneth these 6, viz., health, long life, and ease, his progeny also becometh healthy, and nobody reproacheth him for gluttony. One should not give shelter to these in his house, viz., one that always acteth improperly, one that eateth too much, one that is hated by all, one that is exceedingly deceitful, one that is cruel, one that is ignorant of the proprieties of time and place, and one that dresseth indecently. A person, however distressed, should never solicit a miser for alms, or one that speaketh ill of others, or one that is unacquainted with the Shastras, or a dweller in the woods, or one that is cunning, or one that doth not regard persons worthy of regard, or one that is cruel, or one that habitually quarrels with others, or one that is ungrateful. A person should never wait upon these 6 worst of men, viz., one that is a foe, one that always errs, one that is wedded to falsehood, one that is wanting in devotion to the gods, one that is without affection, and one that always regards himself competent to do everything. One's purposes depend, or their success, on means, and means are dependent, again, on the nature of the purposes sought to be accomplished by them. They are intimately connected with each other, so that success depends on both. Begetting sons and rendering them independent by making some provision for them, and bestowing maiden daughters on eligible persons, one should retire to the woods, and desire to live as a Muni. One should, for obtaining the favours of the Supreme Being, do that which is for the good of all creatures as also for his own happiness, for it is this which is the root of the success of all one's objects. What anxiety hath he for a livelihood that hath intelligence, energy, prowess, strength, alacrity and perseverance? Behold the evils of a rupture with the Pandavas which would sadden the very gods with Sakra. These are, first, enmity between them that are all thy sons, secondly, a life of continued anxiety, thirdly, the loss of the fair fame of the Kurus, and lastly, the joy of those that are thy enemies. The wrath of Bhishma, O thou of the splendour of Indra, of Drona, and the king Yudhishthira, will consume the whole world, like a comet of large proportions falling transversely on the earth. Thy 100 sons and Karna and the sons of Pandu can together rule the vast earth with the belt of the seas. O king, the Dhartashtra's constitute a forest of which the Pandavas are, I think, tigers. Oh, do not cut down that forest with its tigers. Oh, let not the tigers be driven from that forest. There can be no forest without tigers, and no tigers without a forest. The forest shelters the tigers and tigers guard the forest. They that are sinful never seek so much to ascertain the good qualities of others as to ascertain their faults. He that desires the highest success in all matters connected with worldly profit, should from the very beginning practice virtue, for true profit is never separated from heaven. He whose soul hath been dissociated from sin and firmly fixed on virtue, hath understood all things in their natural and adventitious states. He that followeth virtue, profit, and desire, in proper seasons, obtaineth, both here and hereafter, a combination of all three. He that restraineth the force of both anger and joy, and never oaking, loseth his senses under calamities, winneth prosperity. Listen to me, O king. Men are said to have 5 different kinds of strength. Of these, the strength of arms is regarded to be of the most inferior kind. Blessed be thou, the acquisition of good counselors is regarded as the second kind of strength. The wise have said that the acquisition of wealth is the third kind of strength. The strength of birth, O king, which one naturally acquired from one's sires and grandsires, is regarded as the fourth kind of strength. That, however, O Bharata, by which all these are one, and which is the foremost of all kinds of strength, is called the strength of the intellect. Having provoked the hostility of a person who is capable of inflicting great injury on a fellow creature, one should not gather assurance from the thought that one lived at a distance from the other. Who that is wise that can place his trust on women, kings, serpents, his own master, enemies, enjoyments, and period of life? There are no physicians nor medicines for one that hath been struck by the arrow of wisdom. In the case of such a person, neither the mantras of Homa, nor auspicious ceremonies, nor the mantras of the Atharva Ved, nor any of the antidotes of poison, are of any efficacy. Serpents, fire, lions, and consanguineous relatives, none of these, O Bharata, should be disregarded by a man. All of these are possessed of great power. Fire is a thing of great energy in this world. It lurketh in wood and never consumeth it till it is ignited by others. That very fire, when brought out by friction, consumeth by its energy not only the wood in which it lurketh, but also an entire forest and many other things. Men of high lineage are just like fire in energy. Endued with forgiveness, they betray no outward symptoms of wrath and are quiet like fire in wood. Thou, O king, with thy sons art possessed of the virtue of creepers, and the sons of Pandu are regarded as sala trees. A creeper never groweth unless there is a large tree to twine round. O king, O son of Ambika, thy son is as a forest. O sire, know that the Pandavas are the lions of that forest. Without its lions the forest is doomed to destruction, and lions also are doomed to destruction without the forest to shelter them. Thus ends the 37th section in the C.I.E. Udyoga Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 38, C.I.E. Udyoga Parva. Vidura said, the heart of a young man, when an aged and venerable person cometh to his house, as a guest, soareth aloft. By advancing forward and saluting him, he getteth it back. He that is self-controlled, first offering a seat, and bringing water and causing his guest's feet to be washed and making the usual enquiries of welcome, should then speak of his own affairs, and taking everything into consideration, offer him food. The wise have said that man liveth in vain in whose dwelling a Brahmana conversant with mantras doth not accept water, honey and curds, and kin, from fear of being unable to appropriate them, or from miserliness and unwillingness with which the gifts are made. A physician, a maker of arrows, even one that hath given up the vow of brahmacharya before it is complete, a thief, a crooked-minded man, a Brahmana that drinks, one that causeth miscarriage, one that liveth by serving in the army, and one that selleth the Veds, when arrived as a guest, however undeserving he may be, the offer of water should be regarded by a householder as exceedingly dear. A Brahmana should never be a seller of salt, of cooked food, curds, milk, honey, oil, clarified butter, sesame, meat, fruits, roots, potherbs, dyed clothes, all kinds of perfumery, and treacle. He that never giveth way to anger, he that is above grief, he that is no longer in need of friendship and quarrels, he that disregarded both praise and blame, and he that standeth aloof from both what is agreeable and disagreeable, like one perfectly withdrawn from the world, is a real yogin of the bhikshu order, that virtuous ascetic who liveth on rice growing wild, or roots, or potherbs, who hath his soul under control, who carefully keepeth his fire for worship, and dwelling in the woods is always regardful of guests, is indeed the foremost of his brotherhood. Having wronged an intelligent person, one should never gather assurance from the fact that one liveth at a distance from the person wronged. Long are the arms which intelligent persons have, by which they can return wrongs for wrongs done to them. One should never put trust on him who should not be trusted, nor put too much trust on him who should be trusted, for the danger that ariseth from one's having reposed trust on another cutteth off one's very roots. One should renounce envy, protect one's wives, give to others what is their due, and be agreeable in speech. One should be sweet-tongued and pleasant in his address as regards one's wives, but should never be their slave. It hath been said that wives that are highly blessed and virtuous, worthy of worship and the ornaments of their homes, are really embodiments of domestic prosperity. They should therefore be protected particularly. One should devolve the looking over of his inner apartments on his father, of the kitchen, on his mother, of the kin, on somebody he looks upon as his own self, but as regards agriculture, one should look over it himself. One should look after guests of the trader caste through his servants, and those of the Brahmana caste through his sons. Fire hath its origin in water, Kshatriyas in Brahmanas, and iron in stone. The energy of those, i.e., fire, Kshatriyas and iron, can affect all things but is neutralized as soon as the things come in contact with their progenitors. Fire lieth concealed in wood without showing itself externally. Good and forgiving men born of high families and endued with fiery energy, do not betray any outward symptoms of what is within them. That king whose counsels cannot be known by either outsiders or those about him, but who knoweth the counsels of others through his spies, enjoyeth his prosperity long. One should never speak of what one intends to do. Let anything thou doest in respect of virtue, profit, and desire, be not known till it is done. Let counsels be not divulged. Ascending on the mountain top or on the terrace of a palace, or proceeding to a wilderness devoid of trees and plants, one should, in secrecy, mature his counsels. O Bharata, neither a friend who is without learning, nor a learned friend who hath no control over his senses, deserveth to be a repository of state secrets. O king, never make one thy minister without examining him well. For a king's finances and the keeping of his counsels both depend on his minister. That king is the foremost of rulers whose ministers know his acts in respect of virtue, profit, and desire, only after they are done. The king whose counsels are kept close, without doubt commandeth success. He that from ignorance committeth acts that are censurable, loseth his very life in consequence of the untoward results of those acts. The doing of acts that are praiseworthy is always attended with ease. Omission to do such acts leadeth to repentance. As a Brahmana without having studied the Vedas is not fit to officiate at a Shraddha, in honor of the Pitris, so he that hath not heard of the 6 means for protecting a kingdom deserveth not to take part in political deliberations. O king, he that hath an eye upon increase, decrease, and surplus, he that is conversant with the 6 means and knoweth also his own self, he whose conduct is always applauded, bringeth the whole earth under subjection to himself. He whose anger and joy are productive of consequences, he who looketh over personally what should be done, he who hath his treasury under his own control, bringeth the whole earth under subjection to himself? The king should be content with the name he wins and the umbrella that is held over his head. He should divide the wealth of the kingdom among these that serve him. Alone he should not appropriate everything. A Brahmana knoweth a Brahmana, the husband understandeth the wife, the king knoweth the minister, and monarchs know monarchs. A foe that deserveth death, when brought under subjection, should never be set free. If one be weak, one should pay court to one's foe that is stronger, even if the latter deserves death, but one should kill that foe as soon as one commandeth sufficient strength, for if not killed, dangers soon arise from him. One should, with an effort, control his wrath against the gods, kings, Brahmanas, old men, children, and those that are helpless. He that is wise should avoid unprofitable quarrels such as fools only engage in. By this one winneth great fame in this world and avoideth misery and unhappiness. People never desire him for a master whose grace is fruitless and whose wrath goeth for nothing, like women never desiring him for a husband who is a eunuch. Intelligence doth not exist for the acquisition of wealth, nor is idleness the cause of adversity. The man of wisdom only knoweth, and not others, the cause of the diversities of condition in this world. The fool, O Bharata, always disregardeth those that are elderly in years, and eminent in conduct and knowledge, in intelligence, wealth and lineage. Calamities soon come upon them that are of wicked disposition. Devoid of wisdom, envious, or sinful, foul-tongued and wrathful. Absence of deceitfulness, gift, observance of the established rules of intercourse, and speech well controlled, bring all creatures under subjection. He that is without deceitfulness, he that is active, grateful, intelligent, and guileless, even if his treasury be empty, obtaineth friends, counselors, and servants. Intelligence, tranquility of mind, self-control, purity, absence of harsh speech and unwillingness to do anything disagreeable to friends, these 7 are regarded as the fuel of prosperity's flame. That wretch who doth not give to others their due, who is of wicked soul, who is ungrateful, and shameless, should, O king, be avoided. The guilty person who provoketh another about him that is innocent, cannot sleep peacefully at night, like a person passing the night with a snake in the same room. They, O Bharata, who upon being angry endanger one's possessions and means of acquisition, should always be propitiated like the very gods. Those objects that depend upon women, careless persons, men that have fallen away from the duties of their caste, and those that are wicked in disposition, are doubtful of success. They sink helplessly, O king, like a raft made of stone, who have a woman, a deceitful person, or a child, for their guide. They that are competent in the general principles of work, though not in particular kinds of work, are regarded by men as learned and wise for particular kinds of work, are subsidiary. That man who is highly spoken of by swindlers, mimes and women of ill fame, is more dead than alive, forsaking these mighty bowmen of immeasurable energy, viz., the sons of Pandu. Thou hast, O Bharata, devolved on Duryodhana the cares of a mighty empire. Thou shalt therefore soon see that swelling affluence fall off, like valley fallen off from the 3 worlds. Thus ends the 38th section in the C.I.E. Udyoga Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 39, C.I.E. Udyoga Parva. Dhritarashtra said, Man is not the disposer of either his prosperity or adversity. He is like a wooden doll moved by strings. Indeed, the Creator hath made man subject to destiny. Go on telling me, I am attentive to what thou sayest. Vidura said, O Bharata, by speaking words out of season even Vrihaspati himself incurreth reproach and the charge of ignorance, one becometh agreeable by gift, another by sweet words, a third by the force of incantation and drugs. He however that is naturally agreeable, always remaineth so. He that is hated by another is never regarded by that other as honest or intelligent or wise. One attributes everything good to him one loveth, and everything evil to him one hateth. O king, as soon as Duryodhana was born I told thee, thou shouldst abandon this one son, for by abandoning him thou wouldst secure the prosperity of thy 100 sons, and by keeping him, destruction would overtake thy 100 sons. That gain should never be regarded highly which leadeth to loss. On the other hand, that loss even should be regarded highly which would bring on gain. That is no loss, O king, which bringeth on gain. That, however, should be reckoned as loss which is certain to bring about greater losses still. Some become eminent in consequence of good qualities, others become so in consequence of wealth. Avoid them, O Dhritarashtra, that are eminent in wealth but destitute of good qualities. Dhritarashtra said, all that you sayest is approved by the wise and is for my future good. I dare not however abandon my son. It is well known that where there is righteousness there is victory. Vidura said, he that is graced with every virtue and is endued with humility, is never indifferent to even the minutest sufferings of living creatures. They however that are ever employed in speaking ill of others, always strive with activity in quarrelling with one another and in all matters, calculated to give pain to others. There is sin in accepting gifts from and danger in making gifts to them whose very sight is inauspicious and whose companionship is fraught with danger. They that are quarrelsome, covetous, shameless, deceitful, are known as unrighteous, and their companionship should always be avoided. One should also avoid those men that are endued with similar faults of a grave nature. When the occasion that caused the friendship is over, the friendship of those that are low, the beneficial result of that connection, and the happiness also derivable from it, all come to an end. They then strive to speak ill of their late friend and endeavor to inflict loss on him, and if the loss they sustain be even very small, for all that, they from want of self-control fail to enjoy peace. He that is learned, examining everything carefully and reflecting well, should from a distance, avoid the friendship of vile and wicked-minded persons such as these. He that helpeth his poor and wretched and helpless relatives, obtain children and animals and enjoyeth prosperity that knoweth no end. They that desire their own benefit should always succor their relatives. By every means therefore, O king, do thou seek the growth of thy race. Prosperity will be thine, O monarch, if thou behavest well towards all thy relatives. Even relatives that are destitute of good qualities should be protected. O bull of the Bharata race, how much more therefore should they be protected that are endued with every virtue and are humbly expectant of thy favors. Favor thou the heroic sons of Pandu, O monarch, and let a few villages be assigned to them for their maintenance. By acting thus, O king, fame will be thine in this world. Thou art old. Thou shouldst therefore control thy sons. I should say what is for thy good. Know me as one that wishes well to thee. He that desireth his own good should never quarrel, O sire, with his relatives. O bull of the Bharata race, happiness should ever be enjoyed with one's relatives, and not without them. To eat with one another, to talk with one another, and to love one another, are what relatives should always do. They should never quarrel. In this world it is the relatives that rescue, and the relatives that ruin relatives. Those amongst them that are righteous rescue, while those that are unrighteous sink their brethren. O king, be thou, O giver of honors, righteous in thy conduct towards the sons of Pandu. Surrounded by them, thou wouldst be unconquerable by thy force. If a relative shrinks in the presence of a prosperous relative, like a deer at sight of a hunter armed with arrows, then the prosperous relative hath to take upon himself all the sins of the other. O best of men, repentance will be thine for this, thy inaction at present, when in future thou wilt hear of the death of either the Pandavas or thy sons. Oh, think of all this. When life itself is unstable, one should in the very beginning avoid that act in consequence of which one would have to indulge in regrets having entered the chamber of woe. True it is that a person other than Bhargava, the author of the science of morality, is liable to commit actions that go against morality. It is seen, however, that a just notion of consequence is present in all persons of intelligence. Thou art an aged scion of Kuru's race. If Duryodhana inflicted these wrongs on the sons of Pandu, it is thy duty, O king of men, to undo them all. Reinstating them in their position, thou wilt in this world be cleansed of all thy sins and be, O king of men, an object of worship with even those that have their souls under control. Reflecting on the well-spoken words of the wise according to their consequences, he that engageth in acts never loseth fame. The knowledge imparted by even men of learning and skill is imperfect, for that which is sought to be inculcated is ill understood, or if understood, is not accomplished in practice. That learned person who never doth an act, the consequences of which are sin and misery, always groweth in prosperity. The person, however, of wicked soul, who from folly pursueth his sinful course commenced before falleth into a slough of deep mire. He that is wise should ever keep in view the following 6 conduits by which counsels become divulged, and he that desireth success and a long dynasty should ever guard himself from those 6. They are intoxication, sleep, inattention to spice, set over one by another, one's own demeanor as dependent on the working of one's own heart, confidence reposed on a wicked counselor, and unskillful envoys. Knowing these 6 doors, through which counsels are divulged, he that keepeth them shut while pursuing the attainment of virtue, profit, and desire, succeedeth in standing over the heads of his foes. Without an acquaintance with the scriptures and without waiting upon the old, neither virtue nor profit can be known, or won, by persons blessed even with the intelligence of Brihaspati. A thing is lost if cast into the sea, words are lost if addressed to one that listens not, the scriptures are lost on one that hath not his soul under control, and a libation of clarified butter is lost if poured over the ashes left by a fire that is extinguished. He that is endued with the intelligence maketh friendships with those that are wise, having first examined by the aid of his intelligence, repeatedly searching by his understanding, and using his ears, eyes, and judgment. Humility removeth obloquy, ears, failure, prowess, forgiveness always conquereth anger, and auspicious rites destroy all indications of evil. One's lineage, O king, is tested by his objects of enjoyment, place of birth, house, behavior, food, and dress. When an object of enjoyment is available, even that one who hath attained emancipation is not unwilling to enjoy. What again need be said of him that is yet wedded to desire? A king should cherish a counsellor that worshippeth persons of wisdom, is endued with learning, virtue, agreeable appearance, friends, sweet speech, and a good heart. Whether of low or high birth, he who doth not transgress the rules of polite intercourse, who hath an eye on virtue, who is endued with humility and modesty, is superior to 100 persons of high birth. The friendship of those persons never cooleth, whose hearts, secret pursuits, and pleasures, and acquirements, accord in every respect. He that is intelligent should avoid an ignorant person of wicked soul, like a pit whose mouth is covered with grass, for friendship with such a person can never last. The man of wisdom should never contract friendship with those that are proud, ignorant, fierce, rash, and fallen off from righteousness. He that is grateful, virtuous, truthful, large-hearted, and devoted, and he that hath his senses under control, preserveth his dignity, and never forsaketh a friend, should be desired for a friend. The withdrawal of the senses from their respective objects is equivalent to death itself. Their excessive indulgence again would ruin the very gods. Humility, love of all creatures, forgiveness, and respect for friends, these the learned have said lengthen life. He who with a firm resolution striveth to accomplish by a virtuous policy purposes that have once been frustrated, is said to possess real manhood. That man attaineth all his objects, who is conversant with remedies to be applied in the future, who is firmly resolved in the present, and who could anticipate in the past how an act begun would end. That which a man pursueth in word, deed, and thought, winneth him for its own, therefore one should always seek that which is for his good. Effort after securing what is good, the properties of time, place, and means, acquaintance with the scriptures, activity, straightforwardness, and frequent meetings with those that are good, these bring about prosperity. Perseverance is the root of prosperity, of gain, and of what is beneficial. The man that pursueth an object with perseverance and without giving it up in vexation, is really great, and enjoyeth happiness that is unending. O sire, there is nothing more conducive of happiness and nothing more proper for a man of power and energy as forgiveness in every place and at all times. He that is weak should forgive under all circumstances. He that is possessed of power should show forgiveness from motives of virtue, and he, to whom the success or failure of his objects is the same, is naturally forgiving. That pleasure the pursuit of which doth not injure one's virtue and profit, should certainly be pursued to one's fill. One should not however act like a fool by giving free indulgence to his senses. Prosperity never resides in one who suffers himself to be tortured by a grief, who is addicted to evil ways, who denies Godhead, who is idle, who hath not his senses under control, and who is divested of exertion. The man that is humble, and who from humility is modest is regarded as weak and persecuted by persons of misdirected intelligence. Prosperity never approacheth from fear the person that is excessively liberal, that giveth away without measure, that is possessed of extraordinary bravery, that practiseth the most rigid vows, and that is very proud of his wisdom. Prosperity doth not reside in one that is highly accomplished, nor in one that is without any accomplishment. She doth not desire a combination of all the virtues, nor is she pleased with the total absence of all virtues. Blind, like a mad cow, prosperity resides with someone who is not remarkable. The fruits of the Veds are ceremonies performed before the Homa fire, the fruits of an acquaintance with the scriptures are goodness of disposition and conduct. The fruits of woman are the pleasures of intercourse and offspring, and the fruits of wealth are enjoyment and charity. He that performeth acts tending to secure his prosperity in the other world with wealth acquired sinfully, never reapeth the fruits of these acts in the other world, in consequence of the sinfulness of the acquisitions, spent for the purpose. In the midst of deserts, or deep woods, or inaccessible fastnesses, amid all kinds of dangers and alarms, or in view of deadly weapons appraised for striking him, he that hath strength of mind entertaineth no fear. Exertion, self-control, skill, carefulness, steadiness, memory, and commencement of acts after mature deliberation, know that these are the roots of prosperity. Austerities constitute the strength of ascetics, the Veds are the strength of those conversant with them, in envy lieth the strength of the wicked, and in forgiveness, the strength of the virtuous. These 8, viz., water, roots, fruits, milk, clarified butter, what is done at the desire of a Brahmana, or at the command of a preceptor, and medicine, are not destructive of a vow. That which is antagonistic to one's own self, should never be applied in respect of another. Briefly, even this is virtue. Other kinds of virtue there are, but these proceed from caprice. Anger must be conquered by forgiveness, and the wicked must be conquered by honesty, the miser must be conquered by liberality, and falsehood must be conquered by truth. One should not place trust on a woman, a swindler, an idle person, a coward, one that is fierce, one that boasts of his own power, a thief, an ungrateful person, and an atheist. Achievements, period of life, fame, and power. These four always expand in the case of him that respectfully saluted his superiors and waited upon the old. Do not set thy heart after these objects which cannot be acquired except by very painful exertion, or by sacrificing righteousness, or by bowing down to an enemy. A man without knowledge is to be pitied. An act of intercourse that is not fruitful is to be pitied. The people of a kingdom that are without food are to be pitied. And a kingdom without a king is to be pitied. These constitute the source of pain and weakness to embodied creatures, the rains, decay of hills and mountains, absence of enjoyment, anguish of women, and wordy arrows of the heart. The scum of the Vedas is want of study, of Brahmanas absence of woes, of the earth, the Valikas, of man, untruth, of the chaste woman curiosity, of women, exile from home. The scum of gold is silver, of silver, tin, of tin, lead, and of lead, useless dross. One cannot conquer sleep by lying down, women by desire, fire by fuel, and wine by drinking. His life is indeed crowned with success who hath won his friends by gifts, his foes in battle, and wife by food and drink. They who have thousands live, they who have hundreds, also live. O Dhritarashtra, forsake desire. There is none who cannot manage to live by some means or other. Thy paddy, wheat, gold, animals, and women that are on earth, all cannot satiate even one person. Reflecting on this, they that are wise never grieve for want of universal dominion. O king, I again tell thee, adopt an equal conduct towards thy children, i.e., towards the sons of Pandu and thy own sons. Thus ends the 39th section in the C.I.E. Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 40, C.I.E. Parva. Vidura said, worshipped by the good and abandoning pride, that good man who pursued his objects without outstepping the limits of his power, soon succeeded in winning fame, for they that are good, when gratified with a person, are certainly competent to bestow happiness on him. He that forsaketh, of his own accord, even a great object owing to its being fraught with unrighteousness, liveth happily, casting off all woes like a snake that hath cast off its slough. A victory gained by an untruth, deceitful conduct towards the king, and insincerity of intentions expressed before the preceptor, these three are each equal to the sin of slaying a Brahmana. Excessive envy, death, and boastfulness are the causes of the destruction of prosperity. Carelessness in waiting upon preceptor, haste, and boastfulness, are the three enemies of knowledge. Idleness, inattention, confusion of the intellect, restlessness, gathering for killing time, haughtiness, pride and covetousness, these seven constitute, it is said, the faults of students in the pursuit of learning. How can they that desire pleasure have knowledge? Students again, engaged in the pursuit of learning cannot have pleasure. Votaries of pleasure must give up knowledge, and votaries of knowledge must give up pleasure. Fire is never gratified with fuel but can consume any measure thereof. The great ocean is never gratified with the rivers it receives but can receive any number of them. Death is never gratified even with entire living creatures. A beautiful woman is never gratified with any number of men she may have. O king, hope killeth patience. Yama killeth growth, anger killeth prosperity, miserliness killeth fame, absence of tending killeth cattle, one angry Brahmana destroyeth a whole kingdom. Let goats, brass, silver, honey, antidotes of poison, birds, Brahmanas versed in the Veds, old relatives, and men of high birth sunk in poverty, be always present in thy house. O Bharata, Manu hath said that goats, bull, sandal, lyres, mirrors, honey, clarified butter, iron, copper, conch shells, salagram, the stony image of Vishnu with gold within, and Gorochana should always be kept in one's house for the worship of the gods, Brahmanas and guests. For all those objects are auspicious. O sire, I would impart to thee another sacred lesson productive of great fruits, and which is the highest of all teachings, viz., virtue should never be forsaken from desire, fear, or temptation. Nay, nor for the sake of life itself. Virtue is everlasting, pleasure and pain are transitory, life is indeed everlasting, but its particular phases are transitory. Forsaking those which are transitory, betake thyself to that which is everlasting, and let contentment be thine, for contentment is the highest of all acquisitions. Behold, illustrious and mighty kings, having ruled lands abounding with wealth and corn, have become the victims of the universal destroyer, leaving behind their kingdoms and vast sources of enjoyment. The son brought up with anxious care, when dead is taken up and carried away by men to the burning ground. With the dishevelled hair and crying piteously, they then cast the body into the funeral pyre, as if it were a piece of wood. Others enjoy the deceased's wealth, while birds and fire feast on the elements of his body. With two only, he goeth to the other world, viz., his merits and his sins which keep him company. Throwing away the body, O sire, relatives, friends, and sons retrace their steps, like birds abandoning trees without blossoms and fruits. The person cast into the funeral pyre is followed only by his own acts. Therefore should men carefully and gradually earn the merit of righteousness. In the world above this, and also in that below this, there are regions of great gloom and darkness. Know, O king, that those are regions where the senses of men are exceedingly afflicted. O, let not any of those places be thine. Carefully listening to these words, if thou canst act according to them, thou wilt obtain great fame in this world of men, and fear will not be thine here or hereafter. O Bharata, the soul is spoken of as a river, religious merit constitutes its sacred baths, truth, its water, self-control its banks, kindness, its waves. He that is righteous purified himself by a bath therein, for the soul is sacred, and the absence of desire is the highest merit. O king, life is a river whose waters are the five senses, and whose crocodiles and sharks are desire and anger. Making self-control thy raft, cross thou its eddies which are represented by repeated births. Worshipping and gratifying friends that are eminent in wisdom, virtue, learning, and years, he that asketh their advice about what he should do and should not do, is never misled. One should restrain one's lust and stomach by patience, one's hands and feet by one's eyes and ears by one's mind, and one's mind and words by one's acts. That Brahmana who never omitted to perform his ablutions, who always wearied his sacred thread, who always attended to the study of the Veds, who always avoided food that is unclean, who telleth the truth and performeth acts in honor of his preceptor, never falleth off from the region of Brahma. Having studied the Veds, poured libations into fire, performed sacrifices, protected subjects, sanctified his soul by drawing weapons for protecting kin and Brahmanas, and died on the field of battle, the Kshatriya attaineth to heaven. Having studied the Veds, and distributed in proper time his wealth among Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and his own dependents, and inhaled the sanctified smoke of the three kinds of fires, the Vaisya enjoyeth heavenly bliss in the other world. Having properly worshipped Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaisyas in due order, and having burnt his sins by gratifying them, and then peacefully casting off his body, the Sudra enjoyeth the bliss of heaven. The duties of the four orders are thus set forth before thee. Listen now to the reason of my speech as I discourse it. Yudhishthira, the son of Pandu, is falling off from the duties of the Kshatriya order. Place him therefore, O king, in a position to discharge the duties of kings. Dhritarashtra said, It is even so as thou always teachest me. O amiable one, my heart also inclineth that very way of which thou tellest me. Although however, I incline in my mind towards the Pandavas even as thou teachest me to do, yet as soon as I come in contact with Duryodhana it turneth off in a different way. No creature is able to avert fate. Indeed destiny, I think, is certain to take its course. Individual exertion is futile. Thus ends the 40th section in the C.I.E. Udyoga Parva of the Udyoga Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.